I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And as always, I have an amazing warrior guest to introduce to you, Mike Pelt. And I'll do that in just a second. But first, before we get started, let me tell you why you're here. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. And in each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, literally any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is no exception. Mike Pelt is an amazing warrior. He's known as the comeback coach. He's a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, and a coach. And his 25-plus-year warrior journey includes leading Christian men's groups and really forging his trail to take his life back and achieve success. Professionally, he has served in many leadership roles with over 2 decades of deep organizational expertise in the account management, consulting, leadership development, and probably a whole lot more. Mike's vision is to help serve men that need direction in their lives, enabling them to find success and satisfaction in every area and provide a roadmap of discovery back to their hearts and minds. In addition to being a coach, husband, and father, he also finds time for a quick round of golf, which I'm excited about. I'm back into golf after getting my hip replaced. So one of my passions as well. So Mike Pelt, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are things in your world today?
David, they're fantastic. Fall is in the air, and I enjoy that a little bit, those little cool mornings. And but I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, you say cool mornings. That's funny because I was
relatively speaking.
Well,
okay?
no, I'm in Dallas. I get it. I totally get it. We you may be in Georgia or in North Atlanta or whatever. I'm in Dallas, North Texas. It's our
so 60 degrees when it gets into 60.
Yeah, it was 60.
Yeah, I mean it's like 60, 61, 62 degrees in the morning. I'm sorry, folks. That's cool.
Yeah, the guest that I was talking to earlier, she's in Northern Ireland, and she said the same thing. Fall is in the air, and I said, "Yeah, what's that look like?" And she said, "Oh, the colors and I mean, you do, at least in Georgia, have more trees than we have in North Texas.
Yeah,
so you can see the colors change. That's one of the things that we miss here, coming from Michigan and whatever, is the whole fall color change. But yeah, she's talking about, well, the high today will probably be 50 or whatever.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, David, I don't know how many people have been to Atlanta, but Atlanta, now we moved here from South Carolina. So it's pretty much, it's similar clients, similar trees, similar grasses, that type of thing. But I got to tell you, the one thing that surprised me right off the bat when we moved here, the amount of trees. Oh my gosh, this is like Tree City, USA. It's amazing. And so last fall, our first fall here, I mean, the color in the area was just absolutely amazing. So it's very beautiful here. It's surprising amount of trees.
Well, maybe you'll have to come on a color tour along with going on the Bourbon Trail or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
I don't want to get too sidetracked, but it sounds like a great idea.
So and come your way as opposed to going north. So, because
you go.
The happiest day of my life was being able to sell my snowblower and my shovel when I moved from Michigan to Texas. So anyway, well, let's do this. I want to get into your story, and I want to hear about what you're doing with all of the True Man and all the other stuff that you got going. So let's take a quick break, and let's get into the meat of it with after hearing, for the audio audience, you got to learn to say that, a snippet of our theme song, which is "It's Not the Getting There" by Ricky Cheever.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow. traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see.
All right, we are back. And Mike, I'm excited to share. It'll be some things that I haven't heard already in our conversations about your journey. But tell us, how did you get from where you started? And I have probably a little more journey than you, so starting points are always kind of tricky.
Yeah.
But tell me, give me your story from where you started to where you are today.
Well,
and then we'll take a break.
I don't know if there's a great starting point, but I'll start with this. So my wife and I, we actually lived in Texas, in Houston, actually, for 9 years. And we moved to South Carolina back in 2006. And at that time, our youngest daughter was just turning 1 and our son was turning 3. And I'd done, a wide range of things, but I was involved in the insurance and financial services industry. And they put me through a leadership training. And it was a 6-month thing that we went through, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And the whole idea was to bring what you learned back to your chapter. And I applied it to my life. And I went, how do I get more of this? Oh my gosh, how do I get more of this? And at the same time, even though my kids were young, I was talking with them about how important education was, and I hadn't completed mine. And I wasn't 100% fed in my career at that point. And so my wife said, Mike, why don't you be a stay-at-home dad and figure out what it is that you want to do with your life? And so I did. I hired a career person and we went through this journey, and I decided, you know what? It's important to me to finish my degree. And so I finished my degree in business, and then I tried to even, go back out and trying to find a job. And it was a miserable experience. People did not know what to do with me. And I was beginning to do a lot of volunteer work. I was involved in my church, and I loved it. I loved that whole area of that nonprofit world. And I looked at the executive directors and I went, some of these people, the really successful ones, have a master's degree. And I thought, well, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'm going to go get my master's degree. And I did. And it was, I'm so glad that I did, but it created this whole other stigma. Like people just like, now I was like too educated. People didn't know what, I don't know what their thought was. They didn't know what to do with me. And during that process, I began to internalize the no's. Like there must be something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. Like, the people that I'm working with on all these boards and these councils and these committees, they love me, but nobody wants to hire me. I don't see what the disconnect was. And it led me to tremendous confusion in my life. And I decided, well, heck, I'm smart. I'll do my own thing. And I went down this trail of business consulting. And during that time, I met a gentleman by the name of Paul Bailey. And we decided we're going to start our own networking group because we can do it better. And it turned into a men's small group, which ultimately became named True Man, which will come up here in a minute. But Paul and I started down this journey of working with men in small group. And, that turned into some retreats. And ultimately, that's really where my faith came alive. And I began to realize, wow, God really wants to have an intimate relationship with me. And I realized that some of the things that had gone on in my career in terms of wounding, not knowing what my calling was, and just kind of the ups and downs of having to, try to be a breadwinner in the family and, all the stuff that we're raised to do as men, it had caused a little hurt in me. I identified as something I wasn't, and it went through a period of time where, I would kind of wear a mask. I didn't want people to believe something that wasn't true of me, and, or that I was a stay-at-home dad. I wanted them to see me as a CEO of a company. And so I went through this period of really deep frustration with who I was until I got involved in men's small group. And when I really came alive in my faith, I realized, oh my gosh, there's such a need in the marketplace for this. And that was really in the spring of 2019 at a retreat is where that came alive for me. And then of course, we all know what happened in 2020, and the wheels kind of came off there with COVID, and they came off for our family in a different way. Not only did we have to deal with COVID, but my wife's position was eliminated. So we had to deal with relocation and everything that comes with that. But during that time, I just kept thinking, how am I going to pivot out of this? What is Mike Van Pelt going to do with his life? How do you want to pivot out? I knew COVID was a big game changer. I just didn't know how I was going to pivot out of it. And so I went through this coaching process with a gentleman, and I loved it. I loved the tools he had. I decided to align myself with him, and he encouraged me to start this crazy thing called a podcast. And I couldn't come up with a better name. So I took my men's small group. I brought Paul from our small group with me, and I said, we're going to call this a True Man Podcast, and we're going to do this just like our men's small group meeting. And so him and I started the show, and we would just have banter back and forth. It was very, much about faith, and we would discuss masculine, topics. And now it's morphed into more of an interview style. But the podcast really kicked things off and got me involved in the coaching aspect of True Man Life Coaching, where I've got the tools and the ability to walk alongside a guy and help them find their focus, their purpose, and really what their goals are in life. And so this whole True Man brand thing is really it's been a journey. And man, you just never know what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis when you start getting in this podcast world. Look, I'm here with you, David.
Yeah, look at this. Hey, I want to connect a few dots for our audience, because you've actually, in a warrior way, and I love that, because the funny thing is, in this second segment, which is, by the way, the most commented on and inspiring, as I think I shared with you part of the podcast, is you actually hit on some zombies. You didn't call them zombies, but you hit on some zombies. One is, and interestingly enough, you're True Man. You're focused on that, right? But one of the things that occurs to me, and that interesting, is probably because I just had a conversation with a woman focused on women. But the funny thing is, I think some of the zombies that we're encountering have no sex, if you will, assigned to them in terms of the challenge. And one of the things is, you were a stay-at-home dad. Well, how many people, how many women are dealing with the same zombies that you had to deal with? Your spouse lost their job. Your spouse, that maybe not be a zombie. Well, it starts out as a zombie in our world, but then becomes a zombie in our mind. The other zombie you said was really the rejection. The other one is, you felt that you were less than because you didn't have a degree. You felt you were less than because nobody wanted to hire you. You felt that you were less than. Those are all potentially, and generally they're in our environment, in our world, that are attacking us, those zombies, but also they get into our mind, as you pointed out, and they get into your head, right? And then you think you did something wrong. You blame yourself. And I'll tell you, if I've got women listening to this podcast, which I know I do, because there are more women that listen to my podcast than men, believe it or not. Warrior versus zombie, you think, okay, these are all men that listen to this. No, mostly women. And because of I can see the statistics of who's downloading it. And I will tell you that what you're doing, men aren't as good at it. Women do better at it and supporting each other. But the challenges, the zombies that we face, none of us can escape. We're all infected. We all have those challenges. So I just want people to understand that we may resonate because we're both men, and I am a man. I'm one of two choices here. I am a man. Yeah. And we won't get into that, but I'll just tell you, I think the things you've overcome are incredible. And I think really settling in to your purpose, your cause, which is serving the community that you can add value to, is crazy.
Well, David, I'll tell you, here's the reality. The coaching tools that I have, there's no sex attached to them. In other words, I can help a woman as easily as I could help a man. Why do I choose to help a man? Because, it really has to do with the stigma that our culture has created around men. Mm-hmm. And what I know about men is that sometimes where women are really good at community, we're not so good. Like it's, we talked about golf. I love to golf, and how many guys have heard this? You come home and your wife says, "So what did you guys talk about on the golf course?" And you're like, "Well, we golf. I mean, like we're supposed to talk about something on the golf course, and so women do community really, really well. Men don't. And worse than that, we bury stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, we will just stuff it down and we hope we don't have to deal with it. And, a lot of us take that, quote unquote, old school masculine approach of, we're not supposed to say ouch. We're supposed to tough it out, and that type of thing. And that suppresses feelings that really aren't supposed to be suppressed. And so men, what I find, we have to be very intentional about our discussions, and we have to be very intentional about asking good, solid, deep questions that go more than an inch deep. And so that's really why I planted the flag for men. But the reality is what I talk about, I mean, there's no real sex attached to it. Men and women go through the same things. Mm-hmm. I just commonly will use the term man for no good reason other than that's who I work with.
And here's the thing, and we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come into your story, which is why and unique value, and or into the next segment. But I want to say this because you're right. But the thing is, when we talk about what we're doing and our focus forward, you have to pick. It's not, I mean, the story that you told, the reason why I wanted to emphasize that is the story you told doesn't have to be a guy telling that story. I can tell you that, like I said, the guest that I just talked about, she's focused on women and very similar. I mean, not exactly the same. Obviously, our stories are unique, but, there's a lot of alignment. So don't dismiss. My main point is don't dismiss the warrior because they're experiencing and overcoming the same zombies that you are, regardless of how they identify.
For sure.
So let's do this. Let's take another quick break. I want to get into the third segment, which is, your vision, why you're doing what you're doing, the value, and so on. So let's hear for the audio audience. Let's hear one more snippet of "It's Not the Getting There," our theme song with Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll be right back with Mike Van Pelt and Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth.
All right, Mike, you got me energized here, brother. So I'm excited. Plus I started at 4 a.m. this morning, and we already talked about that. I won't go there. But so tell me, why are you doing what you're doing? I kind of get a sense of your story, and obviously you're a guy, so you're qualified. And tell me what why and what kind of impact. Tell me.
Yeah, a lot of times I say, why I do it is to impact the hearts of men for good. And that really sounds like a broad statement to some degree, but the reason I do it is, and I know, cause I was one of these guys and I've seen plenty of these guys will wander around in the darkness searching. And that's usually where we get in trouble, by the way.
Yep.
But you know, they'll wander around searching, and they, like I said earlier, they'll bury stuff, and it's just completely unnecessary. You know, when you have peace and clarity around your purpose and the direction you want to go. I mean, we all have stuff that has happened in our past that, you know, we may have regrets for, and we may not be at peace with. But what I really typically say my niche market is probably that guy that's 45 to 55-ish, that's at a point in their life where maybe they've had kids, or kids are either out of the house or they're getting close to being out of the house. And they're wondering, wow, is there a next for me? Or, you know, maybe they're thinking, what is my legacy? What is my legacy going to be? You know, and those are the guys that, you know, they've been through some stuff, and they want to have a life of more, or that maybe there was something that really hit them and they got wounded like me, and they want to overcome that wound so that they can move on. And that's really what my purpose is centered around, is just walking alongside a guy when they're at that point where they want to go from good to great, or from great to better, you know, and just really figure out what's next. And, you know, the bottom line is, I tell a lot of people this. I've had a golf coach. I call my pastor a faith coach. I call my doctor a health coach. I mean, we have coaches for everything. Take your life seriously and get a coach if you need it.
Right.
And you know,
if you're a coach and you don't have coaches, then you're not a coach, in my opinion, because you don't believe in it. So I have coaches.
I even had a podcast coach. Yeah, you know, but you know why? Because my belief is that, you know, I want to live my best life. Right. If I'm going to do a podcast, I don't want to do it half-assed. Right. If I may say something that bold, I want it to be quality. And because I don't have experience sitting in front of a microphone, although I'm getting it pretty rapidly these days, you know, I want to know, how can I show up best for my guest? In other words, how can I ask better questions? How can I be present if I'm being interviewed? How can I give a better interview? How can I be present during that interview? And that's no different than in life. How do you show up for your family? How do you show up for your job? You know, and it's important, I think, that if you want to live your best life, that if you're not sure you're showing up your best in those areas, go get help.
That's right.
You know, I had an interesting story I'll share. So I'm a part of an organization, and we did a team building exercise, and I was an observer, which was a ton of fun for me to be the observer. And so in this particular case, they took the guys out. We blindfolded them in a gymnasium, and they all put their hands on each other's shoulder, and we marched them out to this little ropes course. And there was these ropes. It was in a circle. And before we went out to the ropes course, the instructor said, "Here are the instructions. Do not take your blindfold off. Keep your hand on the rope at all times. And if you need help, raise your hand." And then we took them out, and he proceeded to give them the same instructions. Please keep your blindfold on, keep one hand on the rope, and if you need help while you're trying to get out, put your hand in the air. Now, the trick to this was there was no way to get out. You had one thing and one thing only that you needed to do. Put your hand in the air and ask for help. Period. And after a while, these guys started to catch on. After 25 minutes, we finally lassoed in the wrong dude, the last dude. And the point of it is, and the moral to the story, if you will, is that, you know, and I could say as men, because I just typically do, but really as human beings, put your hand in the air and ask for help. somebody will be there to grab it, regardless, if you have an addiction, if you need help, with you finding your purpose or gaining some level of clarity in your life, ask for help. And so I love that story because I got to be the observer and see it. And it was like, oh man, that was like unclogging things for me. I'm just glad I wasn't in that rope line trying to figure that out.
How long would you have taken, right, before you raised your hand?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't listen, nor do I follow directions very well. I might have been out there for a while.
Well, the thing is, though, you raise a great point, and that is probably the reason why women are so much better, and why, and again, I is that they are willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
I have 4 daughters and a son, and as a dad, and I was raised this way, by the way, and my dad since passed, and he's a great man. I don't want to disparage him in any way. I would just want to say that what I got was, when I would raise my hand, a lot of times, was suck it up. You can do it. And come away feeling like I was weak because I needed help. And that's the way most guys, we come in.
David, that is exactly right. And that speaks into the importance of men being around each other, because we can learn from each other. And I'm the same way you are. Again, not say I have nothing negative to say about my father. That there were certain environments that we all grew up in, that, I don't think, with all the science and around psychology that we have now, and they weren't wrong the way they raised us. They just didn't know, or they weren't in touch with that vulnerable side that we talk about, that touchy-feely thing. But I think it's important to know that, you don't need to tough it out. You can ask for help. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, we're built for that.
So let me ask you this. I agree with you 100%. And I've got a lot of ideas, as I told you before we started the podcast, about maybe we do something as another podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
Something. But anyway, but before I get into that, and then we'll land the plane and come into the final segment, what kind of impact? I know you want to impact men, and I know you want to, you have this podcast and stuff. So what is your vision, if anything were possible? And I think I've already said to you at least once, is I believe everything is possible. Yeah. As a Christian, I believe that, with God, all things are possible. So, but tell me, if anything were possible, what legacy would you want to have? What kind of impact would you want to have?
Wow. I think about this more and more, and I wish I could say I was an expert in this, but, I just want to see guys lead their families well. What does that look like? I've got a lot of things in the works. I would say, as an entrepreneur, it's been an interesting challenge for sure. And everything's moved on me. Moved. Some of the things that I was working on a year ago, I would have never guessed I'd be at today. What do I want to do? What's the legacy I want to leave behind? I want to build, more true man communities. I want to have retreats where we can have weekends where we invite guys to come out and be with other guys, to learn from each other and make an impact. Ultimately, that's what this is about. It's about families. Mm-hmm. The divorce rate in this country is, I think it's above 51% now, technically, but the point of it is it's awful. Now, there's a variety of reasons for that, and I'm not going to get into that now, but the point of it is that, men, we need to be warriors, not zombies. We need to be better men. And the best way for us to do that, is to be around other men who have walked the walk. In your professional life, that's what you do. If you have a deficiency in your organization, you go get help. Well, why do you do that in your job, but not in your life? Why would you not do that for your family? If you set goals for your job, why would you not do that for your family? And so ultimately, I hope the vision's so big, and I'm not even sure I want to reveal it on here. People will think I'm nuts. Do it. No, listen, I really do. And I've said this, and my heart has caught fire to this because I've been exposed to people that are going down that same path. Really, I want to make an impact on a million men's hearts. Why not?
Why not?
If we can do that, we're going to affect families in this country. And, I understand what it's like to walk around in a daze. Like, really? Is there more to life than this? I mean, seriously, and I think a lot of people, I mean, heck, you can walk in the grocery store right now and it's easy to go, well, was it the price of everything? I mean, no, I mean, people are walking around in a daze. It almost doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman. We all want hope in our lives. And the best way to get it, I think, is to be in community.
Amen.
So, that's, and I don't care where we get it. If it's church for you, it's church for you. I encourage men to find groups across this country. I've been connecting with people as fast as I can find them in various states, in various regions, so that I can find places for guys to go if they need it. We'll keep building them. I mean, maybe someday there'll be, so I don't know if anybody picked up on this, but so my name's Mike Van Pelt, but my initials are MVP, which turns out to be pretty cool. Some lady the other day said, Mike, you could be, what you do is you create the guys to be MVPs for their families. And I'm like, wow. So I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe we'll have a whole MVP leadership thing where we build guys up and send them out so they can go back and be better for their families. Man, that would be awesome. We'll see where that goes. I can't believe I said that out loud.
That is silly. Say it out loud, dude. Everybody needs to hear our vision. That's why I said my life purpose is to change the world one dream at a time. And you say, how can you change the world one dream at a time? I said, well, I want to ultimately get that out. So no, the bigger, God's not limited. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I don't beat people over the head with that, but I'm just telling you, there's no limits. There's no limits to your vision except the ones you put on it. So,
right.
Out of the heart, out of the mouth comes the things of the heart, right? We speak our heart, and so speak your heart. All right, well, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back to what I call the land the plane segment. Maybe that's because I put 4 million miles on airlines, but we're going to land the plane. And when we come back, I'm going to give you a little head start. Give me or the audience what you would hope we take away after this podcast. And then we'll close it. All right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back after hearing a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright, our theme song. And we'll be right back with Mike Van Pelt and Warrior versus Zombie.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul. And by the grace of God, on down the road we go.
All right, Mike, lively, and I see possibilities and potential all over the place with our conversation as when we started, before we even decided to do this podcast. So tell me, if we take away anything from this podcast, what would you want us to take away?
Well, in my life, I've had a lot of people tell me to set goals. And I've done that on and off throughout my life. And I do believe that's important. But one thing that I didn't do very well was enjoy the journey. I wasn't always present along the way. So if I had to give people advice, I would tell them, set goals, but enjoy that journey. Now that in journey, sometimes there's going to be, road bumps and it's not going to be easy, but you need to figure out a way to enjoy it. And I've got these little 1% sticky notes all over my house, because as I've done this entrepreneurial thing, I've tried at times to bite that elephant. You know, but what I realized was that if I show up 1% better every day and just enjoy the ride, that good things are going to happen. And that has held true for me since I started that mantra, since I really, really gave it to Jesus and said, man, you're the one in control. Lead me, just lead me. And it's been quite a journey.
Well, all I can say is when somebody hears the audio version of this podcast, you're going to think that Mike was listening to the song. But I will just tell you, it says it's not the getting there. And when you talk about goals, that's one of the, you're singing my song, because it's simply, yes, it's good to have goals. Yeah, you need to know what your vision is of the future and where, if anything were possible, you're going, but it's a journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. So when you say impact millions of people, it's not like I want to get 1 million followers or I want to be an influencer. No, it's you want to go down the path one step at a time, one day at a time. There's another song that I really love. It's called Be Held. It's, as guys, we always try to hold it all together. Everybody needs to be strong.
Yeah.
Then life hits you out of nowhere and barely leaves us hanging on. But we realize that our world's not falling apart. It's falling into place if you have the kind of faith and the reliance that you're talking about. So that's brilliant. I love it. It's a huge warrior nugget that everybody should take away. So Mike, I know we're on the Be Connected platform. I know this replay will be up. You'll be on my YouTube channel. We'll be on every podcast platform that's out there. How else do we stay following up to this podcast? How do we stay in touch with you?
Well, you can always go out to my website. I put the podcast there. So my website is truemanlifecoaching.com. All my social media, is there as well. But you can send me an email, drop me an email, connect with me. I'm always open to a strategy call. Love to talk with people. So the email address is mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. And if that's not enough, you can give me a call. I'm always happy to talk. In fact, I probably talk too much, but that's beside the point. So you can always call me at 864-266-2058. Yes, that's a South Carolina number. That's my old hood. So there you go.
Well, again, for those listening, I'll put some of those in the show notes for all on the YouTube channel and other places. But in any event, just reach out to Mike and at True Man Life Coaching, and or if you're in,
follow us on the podcast, True Man Podcast. So
you're on all the podcast platforms too. Who knows?
I'm on all of them. Yeah, and if you go, you can find it on my website. But if you go to truemanpodcast.com, it'll take you right to my page, and sure. you can find all my podcasts there. Well,
that's brilliant. Well, for those listening, I have to say we're going to hear the final outro of It's Not the Getting There with Ricky Jean Wright. We'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie. And thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for
I enjoyed it.
Our audience. It was
fun.
And I have a sense that we'll probably have some other fun down the road. I just have that feeling. I'm not sure what, where it's coming from, but
that might be a song. Maybe you should play that song.
There we go. All right, brother. Well, for those listening again, join us back next Thursday at 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern on Mike's time, and we'll be back with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, When you get there, you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know.